Welcome to another episode of VNture Podcast, your weekly source of visual novel goodness. I am Amar, and together with Taurus we shall venture into another discussion about VNs. Today we are honored to talk with a person well versed in an art of scripted performance. Will our guest rise up to the challenge and speak without prepared lines? NoahNovels, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. So I am NoahNovels. I am a visual novel YouTuber who also has done a decent amount of anime-related content. I started March 2020, and while not consistent, I've been making videos on and off for about over 3 years now. And I am really happy to be on this podcast with you guys.
And again, we're happy to have you. You mentioned, so you have a YouTube channel, and you started back in March 2020. What led you to start your YouTubing channel and to focus it on visual novels and, weeb-related material?
That's a really interesting question. So it started off, weirdly enough, in college. During one of my semesters, I had an open spot for a class, but in order to keep my financial aid, I needed to take a minimum amount of classes. So in one of them, I saw that there was a video editing class. And when I was 14, I was really into making YouTube videos, editing, and stuff like that. I made a lot of cringy Sonic videos that are now unlisted, thank God. But I saw that, and I'm like, I already have some experience with video editing. I'll do this. It should be easy, right? That I can't believe I just called the art form of video editing easy, but I was foolish at the time. So anyways, I took it, and within a month of taking that class, I remembered just how much I actually loved the art of putting videos together. What was great about that class, there was a lot of freedom. It wasn't heavily mandated what you had to do. So for one of my projects, I got to make a mini documentary about Hayao Miyazaki, who is, obviously everyone knows who he is, one of the best anime movie directors out there. And the feeling of satisfaction upon completing that video, a topic I was passionate about, I just got to talk about it and put in all my clips and videos that I gathered online, and seeing it all come together with the music and stuff. I know it might not sound like a lot when I'm talking about it, but it's a really cool experience because you watch it start from zero and see it upon completion. I'm not saying it very well, but anyways, realize that I do still love making videos, and I love visual novels. It's my favorite medium of storytelling. So after I finished that class, I decided I just finished playing Steins Gate Linear Bounded Phenogram, which is a kind of like a spin-off of Steins Gate with 10 side stories that is really good. So I wrote up a script for a review, which I hadn't done a video script in years. Put it together in about a month or so, and then I got pretty good feedback from both friends and family who obviously watched it because they know me, but also I shared it around on a visual novel subreddit, I believe, and other places like Steins Gate related communities and whatnot, and I got pretty good feedback from it. And I don't know, I really like talking about stories, because visual novels, a lot of the stories are very, they just have a lot to dissect. Especially when, obviously I really like anime too, but I find sometimes, you get a lot more out of these stories by seeing the internal thoughts of the characters through all these situations. And that's why visual novels are so good. I'm very passionate, obviously, about the medium of storytelling that is visual novels. So I decided going forward that I would continue making videos, just kind of whatever visual novels I happen to play, I would make reviews on and talk about the stories and what I liked, not just the stories, but the artwork and other aspects as well. And I've been doing that, again, on and off for about 3 years now, and I still really enjoy it.
Nice. Like you mentioned, I agree. Visual novels have so many aspects to them that lead them to just being one heck of a complete package. You've got the script writing of the writing and the characterization. There's the artwork. There's the music. There's even some of them have choices, and so how that branches out. And if you have any, I guess you could say gameplay related segments that can tie into the story as well. That's a big reason why, I like visual novels too, and a big reason why MR and I wanted to run this podcast. So No, I mean, I totally understand that idea of creating something for the first time and then just being so proud of it.
Yeah, it's funny, like, cause whenever I finish a video, like, I'm very self-critical of myself. So like I'll always finish a video, and when I'm like rewatching on YouTube, I'm like, oh, this could be better, or like I could have done this transition or talked a bit more about this point. But still, even when I see like something I make is imperfect, it's the fact that I was passionate about this story. I had something to say or convey about said story, and the fact that I, did that from start to finish, like I'm always just really happy, even if I look back on videos and think they could have been better in certain ways. It's always just very satisfying, and I just like to share my thoughts with kind of like people who watch and talk about visual novels, because it's just at the end of the day, it's a fun and enjoyable thing to do.
Speaking of your, earlier videos and your YouTube channel, what kind of review style do you bring to your channel? I've checked out some of your videos before, and I noticed there's some variety. Like some of your earlier videos just had a static image as the background, and so it was mostly audio. Some of them had the camera on yourself as you spoke into the camera off a script. And then some other videos just have, very well edited clips of the visual novel in question, like scenes and video clips of the characters and whatnot. And so, usually review sorts of channels have one specific style, and there's pros and cons to each. What made you think about branching off into different stuff or just trying new things, or what can you tell us about that?
So I guess like the biggest thing with me is I do like to experiment and play around with different like styles and ideas. And like as I was making these videos, I was just like kind of like toying with like new concepts, different styles and whatnot. I think like these days I like to have more of a streamlined, like I know exactly like what kind of video it's gonna be, and that's more kind of just like analytical, straightforward. As for like, there's been different reasons for like all the different styles I've done. Like you mentioned, the ones that's just like a still image and audio. That was a combination of just like not having a lot of time, and also just like certain restrictions with like my editing software, because for a while my PC went out of commission for a bit. So like I just had like this kind of like janky laptop to work with, so I couldn't do anything like too crazy or powerful. So sometimes that's why I do it. But also like it's just I do think that video should have some like more, typically more than just like one image. But like sometimes I do think less is more. Like I think if you have something interesting or important enough to say, even if it's something just with a static image, if what you're saying really has that much value, it'll still come off well. Now, I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back like, oh, what I have to say is that important, but like the idea is, I don't think like every video needs like an insane amount of like editing to like have like entertainment value. So along with just kind of restrictions, of like time or like my computer, that's kind of the reason for the like still image ones. Then there was like a period where one of my favorite YouTubers is Scott the Woz. I love his style of comedy. I think he's very witty, but like also he balances that witty, very hilarious writing with just like very well thought out video essays on like the world of gaming and whatnot. And to be completely honest, I just kind of wanted to achieve that style with my videos for a bit. So if you go through like all my visual novel reviews, you're gonna see a period of time where like in the middle of the reviews, there's just like cuts of me on camera, like performing like a skit or a gag. And still had fun doing them, and I think some of them are funny, but looking back on it, they break the pace of the video so bad, because you have like this kind of like atmospheric music maybe, and I'm talking about like, I don't know, like the themes of like this visual novel that's talking about, I don't know, like mortality or something serious like that, and then I'm like, I'm gonna hit my head with a book on camera. And it was fun, but definitely a pace breaker, and it's something I'm probably gonna not go back to unless like it might get experimental again, but I kind of like the streamlined process I have now. Then there were a couple videos, like you mentioned, where I'm just in front of a camera and talking. That's also probably another style I'm not going to go back to, just because I need like a script beforehand. Like I'm sure you've noticed, even while talking now, I'm like saying or like taking a second to gather my thoughts. if I'm like put on the spot sometimes without like a good idea of like what I'm trying to say or where I'm trying to go, conversation wise, I just become a stuttering, bumbling mess. Like I did a video. The first half was about an anime called My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. The second half was about the second season of Kaguya-sama Love is War. And for the first half, for the one that's about My Next Life as a Villainess, I had the bold idea where I'm like, I like this show. I can talk about it. So I just set up my little like DSLR camera on a tripod, stood in front of my bookshelf, and I started talking. And I probably got like a sentence in before I started realizing I didn't know like what to say or like what I was doing. So I decided for me, because like I want to say something of value or of note. Like I want to just be able to like eloquently express my thoughts on these stories or these series of these visual novels. And I just don't think I can achieve that doing that on the spot. There are some people who can just like immediately like talk about what they thought, and that is awesome. I need prep work beforehand. I need to take the time to write out on a script, like, like my thoughts breaking up into like story, artwork, music. And I think that is what's led to the best results for me. And that's kind of like where my videos are at now, where I don't do like the live action skits because one, bit of a pace breaker. Two, I only have so many ideas for like gags that I think would be funny. And then three, I think to have like a more cohesive video, it's good to kind of like, I'm not saying you can never have variety on your channels or videos, of course not. But I'm saying like for me, what I like is I like to have like one video be kind of tonally consistent. And to do that, I like basically just, get all my thoughts out on a visual novel. I really take the time to examine what I thought of the story, my experiences with it, and like why it would appeal to people who haven't played it yet, like trying to convince them to play it. Getting all that down, timing it with, like you said, I really try to like, include like a good amount of like footage from the visual novels, including if I like want examples of like other visual novels that did something I liked, I have to like grab footage from there. I just like, having like very meticulous and thought out like clips chosen to make like a full like narrative review where I talk about the story objectively. I talk about kind of like, what its themes were or like what it was trying to accomplish in its story. If I thought it accomplished it, where maybe if I didn't think it did so, like how it could improve. And then I move on to the other aspects like artwork, music, the UI design interface and whatnot. And closing it out with just kind of like a recap of my thoughts and my final rating of the visual novel before closing it out. And I just really like for like videos I watch, I just like videos like where people really dig into the meat of a story, talk about like what it's about and if it's like accomplished what it was trying to do. So that's kind of like what I want to do in my videos, just because like there's so many like deep stories with visual novels that like there's so much to look at and analyze in them, and I want to be able to do that in a way where I also want to do it as spoiler free as possible, so that way if like someone's not sure if they want to try this out, I can kind of like tell them like kind of like what the story's about without actually spoiling it and if it's like worth their time. And that's like the videos I like now. So I know I went on a bit of a tangent. You asked me like what was the deciding factors for all these different styles. To make a long story short, it was me like experimenting with different ideas, and also some of it was like restraints with time or whatnot. But yeah, it's, for now I have like a streamlined process of more analytical and like slower paced reviews, and that is what I'm sticking to for now.
I have to say, answering Taurus' question made you also answer unasked question that I prepared, one of which was about spoilers, because we gathered some of your thumbnails, especially from your VN reviews. You have a very minimalistic style and you make it very apparent, without even listing the name of VN in the thumbnail. Spoiler-free review. So obviously,
my favorite bit of text right there.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I was wondering how important it is and why for you to be like that. But you answered that, and it is an answer I completely agree with, because you don't want to rob that experience from the person that reads it for the first time. But I want to circle back to what you talked about variety, and especially variety against structured content. because I do believe, how can I say it? It's one of the things that makes your channel unique is that you have a variety in terms of content. And from what I gathered from your explanation, you had an exploratory phase in which you tried some different approaches until you landed on a structured form you want to make your reviews in. Does that mean that variety, as in peak performance kind of videos, still we can expect from you?
Yeah, so for like right now, I've definitely like achieved like this kind of like streamlined type of video or process, but this could very easily change. I'm a very wishy-washy person, and sometimes I just like for right now, for like the past, what are we in April this year? For the past like 4 months or so, I just feel like I've achieved this style that I'm like really happy with, and it's also good for time's sake because it's like the simplest, not simplest, but like I don't know, the most effective type of video structure I can achieve between like work and school and stuff. Like with the live action skits, those would take a lot of planning and additional stuff that would take up more time. So I am not saying that I'll never go back to like having a more variety of content. I'm just saying for like right now, I'm like really happy with like the style of video I've landed on. And I'm gonna keep doing that, but there could very well be a point where I'm like, I want to try something more, or I want to try something different again, and in which case I might get more experimental with my style. I don't want to like confine myself to like I don't want to confine myself to just like one style for like the rest of like my time on YouTube. But like I think sometimes I would get try doing too many different things at once almost. I don't want to say too ambitious because I think ambition is typically a very good thing. But because of that, sometimes I feel like, for example, like some of the videos I had with the live action skits sprinkled throughout it. I am still really proud of those videos and I really like them. I think maybe if I spend less time coming up with like a funny thing to break up the review with, I might have put it a little more thought or effort into a certain aspect of the visual novel I glanced over that I didn't talk about as much in the review. And I just want to avoid that for right now because I'm pretty happy with like my Carpe Diem review, which is my most recent one.
I mean, I just wanted to say that I find skits and gags of that nature very endearing because it's something that makes you stand out. So I really appreciate you trying to interject some sort of uniqueness to the review. I'm not saying the reviews are soulless by themselves because obviously they're not, but at the very least you make something that is truly standoffish, and it just channels passion, okay? Whenever I see something like that, that fills the mold of obviously skits being prepared for that specific title with the intention of selling some concept. It just, I personally like to see them more, but if you go with your structure that you are content with, that is fine.
Thank you. Honestly, a part of it too is like I wasn't sure if like the people liked like that like sort of style or like, you know, breaking up the review with those skits or whatnot, because like I just didn't get like a ton of like positive feedback or like words on that specifically. I didn't have anyone commenting or emailing me like, wow, this stinks, that's stupid. But it's just like I guess like maybe I just thought that maybe they were bogging them down because I said before I get very self-conscious with my videos sometimes, so I just went to streamline it a bit more. I definitely will say that like those videos where I have like the live action like skits or gags or whatnot, like I had a blast making them. Like they're still some of the most fun I've had like making videos on my channel. So well, for now I do have like my streamlined process that can very likely change, and if I find like I have like, you know, a cool or funny enough idea for like live action like you know, moments in these reviews, I am definitely not opposed to going back to it. It's just for now, now I like kind of like the style I have.
Okay, but just to make one last point, if you think it's actually the flow that they interrupt too much, maybe try to shuffle them around at the start, at the end, instead of just interjecting between a serious moment and analysis with some skits. And speaking of analyzing VNs, and this is something you brought up, I think it was in the top 5 free visual novels to read. How intimidated are you reviewing old titles that a lot of other reviewers tackled already, on the example of Katava Shoujo, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, so it is very interesting. Like whenever I go to like play a review of a visual novel, I won't watch the other people's reviews, but I will look up like on YouTube or Google, like for example, like Sound a Drop Fall into Poison. I'll see if there's reviews. And I guess like how intimidated I am. I guess like basically I just want to make sure that like cuz my visual novel review videos, they can tend to be like on the longer side compared to other ones. And I want to make sure with that time I am giving people something that's like like worthy of their time, I guess. Like I don't want to just be meandering like talking about something that someone else has already explained in like 5 or 6 minutes. I want to make sure that like when I talk about something, I have like my own like kind of like unique spin or take on it. So even if I do hit some of the like the similar points, like I want people to be able to watch my videos and not think they've seen the same exact video, but like maybe in a tighter format. So that's why sometimes I'm like a little intimidated with like big visual novels like Katawa Shoujo, because like that's a visual novel so many people like know and talk about. And I just like sometimes I get a little self-conscious or worried. I'm like, if I play this, and it's a bit of a time commitment if I do, it's like, will I have anything to offer that hasn't already been said? And I try to like push those thoughts away whenever I do a visual novel, but especially when it's like bigger visual novels or ones that are on the longer side, that'll be a bit of a time commitment. It is something that like gets to me. I think overall I've done pretty well at just kind of like pushing that aside and just doing what I want to without care for like if it's already been said before, because to pat myself on the back, but I do think I sometimes offer like interesting like takes, or opinions on certain visual novels. But like it is just like when you have like a visual novel like Little Busters or Katawa Shoujo, it's tough for me to like, because I don't want to try too hard too. Like I don't want to like go into my review thinking like, oh, I need to like say something specific that hasn't been said before. I just want to say what comes naturally to me. I'm kind of like losing my train of thought a bit here, but yeah, basically, I just want to make sure that when I make a video, want to make sure that like I am saying something like of note that like will like when someone finishes watching my videos, they'll feel like they took away something from that video rather than I can't believe I just watched a 15-minute review on this 5-hour visual novel, if that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense.
No, totally.
And at least it will be spoiler free, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes I'll do a little like time skip section where like I'll be
Okay.
like go to this part in the video like for Voices from the Sea, for example. I wanted to talk about a very specific theme of the story, but I felt like doing so might spoil like a pretty big revelation. So I just said like in the video, go to this timestamp if you don't want to hear this. Because I do think for the most part, I like to think I do a pretty good job of being able to like eloquently talk about like the themes of the story and like the character arcs without actually spoiling what specifically happens in the story. But I do think it does get difficult with certain stories, especially if they're shorter ones. Like Voices from the Sea is like maybe an hour long, maybe a little over. I can't remember exactly. And I wanted to be able to actually talk about this theme, but doing so might ruin the story a bit. So I try to avoid that when I can. But sometimes I do want to offer the most content in the story. And not everyone minds getting spoiled, too. So I like to have options. Most of the time I stick to spoiler free. But when I feel like I do have something very important to say, but I can't say so without spoiling something, that's when I'll resort to kind of like skip to this timestamp if you don't want to be spoiled, and then I'll like dig a bit deeper into like the meat of the story.
Well, on my end at least, I thank you for not ever including spoilers, especially not in the titles or in the thumbnails. That's the worst. But on that note, I wanted to ask you something else. And as a pretty basic question, what is your favorite visual novel?
All right, so if it's all right, I'm going to give two answers because one is like
Fine.
an answer that like I feel like I'm going to say it and everyone's going to be like, "Yeah, of course that's your favorite visual novel." It's just like a very well-known and beloved visual novel. And then I'm going to give a lesser-known title that I also really love as one of my favorite visual novels. So the first one, it'll always be like objectively, this is my number. Well, I guess I could read something that tops this, but I don't see that happening. My objective number one visual novel will always be Umineko When They Cry. Ryukishi 7 has like such a way, and I know not everyone, his writing style is definitely not for everyone. Like, he can spend a very long time ranting about like two actions. I think it's very eloquent the way he writes, and I feel like everything does have a purpose. The way he immerses you in these murder mysteries, and like his characters are so fleshed out. Umineko starts as like a pretty standard like murder mystery with like a hint of supernatural stuff going on, and it transforms. And this is I do eventually want to do a video on Umineko, but it's a video that will just completely dive into spoilers because I cannot talk about this series without doing so, because something pretty big happens at the end of episode 1, and to properly talk about like the whole series, it would be spoilers. But it transforms from, it still keeps that murder mystery aspect, but it also turns into like a meta narrative about like how we as people consume media. It made me like really like reflect on like how like I watch like anime or read visual novels, and also along with it, it has like freaking everything. Like I will not cover every base in this podcast, but it also it's kind of like a deconstruction of the horror of the murder mystery genre, while also being a love letter to said genre. It has so many different like facets to its story. I really think there's something in there for everyone. If you like romance, it has that. If you like action, it has that. If it has mystery, it has that. If you like kind of like themes that like you really kind of like have to think about for a while, it has that too. It is just like, I've never experienced such a wild but well put together like roller coaster of emotions. Like, if I were to go on YouTube in a tab right now and look up like Umineko When They Cry episode 8 ending, I would start tearing up because that is one of the most powerful endings in like any piece of media I've seen. It is a bit of a time commitment though. I can't recommend it to everyone because it is 80 plus hours. Is just like a lot of what some people would consider a lot of people like I would probably say like kind of see him meandering a bit. Like, he spends a lot of time describing the simplest of things. I think it's really eloquent and interesting the way he does it. It's not for everyone, but I think in terms of just like a complete narrative experience, Umineko When They Cry is one of the best pieces of media I've ever consumed, and I'm not like trying to like, you know, like just say that for the sake of like, you know, having like you know, a good soundbite or something. I generally think it's like, you know, one of the best pieces of media out there. So that will be my number one visual novel. As for a lesser known title, I really like don't know like how lesser known it is. I just think like it's definitely on the smaller side. There's a visual novel called Lucid 9. And it's also kind of like a murder mystery. It has been, I haven't played this game since I was 15, but it still sticks out with me, like how addicted and enthralled with the story I was. It starts off kind of generic. Like, there's a lot of like established tropes that you feel like you've seen a lot in like other anime or visual novels. The way it transformed, like the characters like all have like such interesting, like, you know, I don't want to say they completely like flip or subvert the tropes. Like, they still stick to the conventions at times, but like the depth beneath like that surface level like tropiness of them is like really good. Like, I remember the main character's backstory was like really like engaging to me. It's still probably like some of the most tense moments I've ever experienced in a piece of media. If I recall correctly, I don't want to give away too much information. There was like a really good panic attack scene, and like it got me like feeling panicked or kind of just like, you know, worried myself a bit for these fictional characters. The only downside to it is anyone who knows about Lucid 9 knows that it ends on a cliffhanger, and as of now, development is still supposedly going on for it, but we haven't had a continuation of the story. And it's been, I want to say the game was released in like 2015, if I'm not mistaken, which means it's been 8 years, and supposedly it's still happening. I know good quality things take their time, so I'm not like saying like how dare they take their time, But if you're like the kind of person who like needs like a complete, like if you need to like go into a story knowing you can like finish the whole thing and you won't have any like unresolved questions or lingering story threads, I couldn't recommend it. Also, it's also just has really competent artwork. The soundtrack is really good. They were working on a voice acting DLC, but I don't know if that ever ended up happening. It's just it's a free visual novel. It's insane. I would have paid money for it. It's just really good. If you're looking for like a good, like kind of mystery thriller type story, and it feels like again at first it might feel a little tropey, but it becomes so much more. I definitely recommend Lucid 9. So for my favorite visual novels, Umineko When They Cry, and then another one of my favorite VNs is definitely Lucid 9.
And both murder mysteries, like you said?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both murder and mystery. Yeah, so Umineko starts off more regular murder mystery, then like I said, it transforms into something else. For Lucid 9, it's been like a very long time since I've read it, so a lot of the specifics of the story have kind of become blurred. I do plan on replaying it when the sequel comes out, if it does. But it's mystery. I'm pretty sure it involves like a series of deaths or murders. Yeah, I think so. There's definitely some mystery aspect to it. I'd say it's more like mystery thriller, whereas like Umineko has like its thriller elements because it kind of dabbles in every genre, but like it starts off as a more conventional murder mystery.
Ooh, okay. I am very concerned about Lucid 9, though, being sort of an episodic. Well, it ends on a cliffhanger, and development is still apparently ongoing. That's worrying. The poor game.
It's one of those things where it's like, I can't say for certain it'll ever be continued. I think, don't quote me on this, I think they're either launching or have launched a Kickstarter to like, speed up the development process of the next one. It's one of those things though, where like, even if the story's never complete, I will be disappointed if it's never completed, but I am still very grateful for like what we did get. Cause I would say like, contains like a pretty satisfying like one-off story, and it's just like the ending to that one-off story has some like kind of like unresolved threads, and then there's like a huge insane cliffhanger that's supposed to lead into the next part. But if you cut that stuff out, you still have like a very satisfying like narrative with like the character arcs and the mystery of that specific like episode. So I'll always be happy for Lucid 9, what we got. I will be disappointed if we never get a second one, but I'm one of those people where like I can go into a story knowing it's never going to be completed, so long as it's more about the journey than the destination for me. So long as I feel like I had a good and emotional time reading a visual novel, or really any piece of media for that matter, I can stick with it, even if I know there won't be a definite ending. And there will always be fan fictions to quench that thirst for a perfect ending.
Oh boy. I remember one of my favorite series is The Zero Escape. And the second one in the series was Virtue's Last Reward. It was great, and I loved it. It had so many great plot threads and characters and twists involved. It also ended on a massive cliffhanger. And it was very clearly intended for there to be a third game in the trilogy, but then the series got canceled. So I know that pain of when you have something that was great, but it has a subpart ending, and it's like, okay, well, the next one's going to be great. It's going to continue off. I can't wait for it. And then it's been years, and you're like, okay, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah, it's happened more times than I would like to admit, and I have played the Zero Escape series, and man, that's some peak sci-fi right there. I adore that series so much.
For better or for worse, oh man, it goes hard into the sci-fi. Yeah.
Didn't it end up? It's been a while since I played them. Didn't it end up getting a third title though? It's called like.
Yeah, it did.
It did. Zero Time Dilemma, which
that's what it was.
It was. I can at least say it was the third game in the series. Most people probably would say it's not the best in the series, but it provided the best meme quality. So thank you for that.
And there are some people like me who jumped on the series starting from that title first. So I got burned.
It still hurts.
Yeah.
How could you, MR?
I told you it was first that published to a PC. That's it. That's all it is.
Well, I think this is where we'll have to leave things off for this week's episode. Thank you again so much, NoahNovels, for coming on board. It was a blast having you.
It was really good being able to. It was very interesting because you asked me some cool self-reflective questions. I haven't always done that, so it's kind of very fun to actually look back on how or why my channel started and how I've continued. And I got to rant about Umineko and Lucid9 and other stuff for probably too long than is socially acceptable. So I had a really good time.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and thanks also to all our listeners. And goodbye.